The movie opens in Japan with a couple named Masakazu and Akiko, who have recently been married. Both appear deeply in love, and it is revealed that Masakazu is a novelist who is much older than his young wife. The couple then arrives at Masakazu's hometown, Kamakura, where Akiko feels a strange sense that time moves more slowly than in Tokyo. Days later, we see Masakazu trying to write a manuscript under a strict deadline, but he is struggling greatly. His wife tries her best to encourage him, and soon an editor named Honda appears to collect the manuscript. Akiko serves him a meal and attempts to stall him as much as she can, but when she approaches her husband, she is shocked to find him playing with trains instead of writing. She scolds him, and suddenly, Masakazu is struck by inspiration and begins writing the manuscript. Somehow, he manages to finish it before the deadline, and the couple drops Honda off at his home. While the couple is returning home, a strange creature suddenly crosses the street in front of them, startling Akiko. She asks what it is, and Masakazu reveals that it is a kappa, a creature from Japanese mythology. The next day, Masakazu warns his wife not to enter his storage room and leaves the house for some work. However, Akiko cannot contain her curiosity, so she enters the room and is shocked to find it filled with model trains and various other strange objects. While she is inspecting the place, an old woman suddenly appears and introduces herself as Aunt Kin. She explains that she has been working as a maid for Masakazu's family for many generations and has come to help with the housework. Akiko is pleased to meet the lovely old woman and brings her tea while asking questions about Masakazu's family. The old woman then gently holds Akiko's hand and thanks her for marrying Masakazu despite being much younger than him. She reveals that Masakazu's mother died when he was very young and that he has been living here alone for a long time. Not long after, Masakazu returns home, and he is also very happy to see Aunt Kin. Akiko then notices that her husband has bought another model toy, costing 90,000 yen, which angers her. She is frustrated by his wasteful spending habits and realizes that this is the reason they are so poor, so she takes his train model and forbids him from buying anything else from now on. Later, Akiko gives Masakazu a manuscript she discovered in the storeroom, and it turns out to be an old manuscript by someone named Goshiro Kotaki. The couple then drops Aunt Kin off at a bus stop and sees her safely home, after which Akiko remarks that the old woman is already 85 but looks remarkably young. Masakazu responds that her husband died in a war in 1905, which means Aunt Kin is actually well over 100 years old. While returning home, the couple comes across a mysterious night market, which Akiko insists on visiting, even though her husband is hesitant. Upon entering the market, they notice people who look like bizarre creatures, but Akiko assumes they are just in costume. Masakazu is then approached by an old woman named Yuko, who lives in the same neighborhood. They chat for a while, and Masakazu even introduces the old woman to his wife. Later, Akiko spots some matsutake mushrooms at the market, and to her surprise, they are very cheap. She ends up buying them, but the seller seems very shady and gives a sinister laugh after she leaves. While leaving the market, Masakazu finally reveals that all those people in the market weren't in costume but were real people who were dead, including the old woman Yuko. This horrifies Akiko, and just then, Yuko appears and explains that after her death, she felt guilty for leaving her husband behind. She thus applied for a ghost certificate and asked the Grim Reaper to let her remain as a ghost until her husband dies as well. She explains that Kamakura has long been a place where supernatural energy gathers, where demons, ghosts, and even the Grim Reaper coexist, leaving Akiko visibly scared. The next day, Akiko makes miso soup with the matsutake mushrooms she bought at the night market. She tastes the soup and finds it delicious, so she serves it to her husband. But as soon as he takes a sip, he collapses, and his soul begins to leave his body from his mouth. This terrifies Akiko, and she tries to make his soul return, but to no avail. Fortunately, Aunt Kin arrives and uses a stick to put the soul back into his body, after which Masakazu wakes up. Aunt Kin then explains that this mushroom is poisonous, and when a human eats it, their soul can leave their body, causing death. Since Akiko had also taken some, her soul starts to drift out, but she quickly closes her mouth. Aunt Kin tells her to swallow it and asks her to be cautious for the next few days. Days later, Masakazu is returning home at night when he bumps into Yuko and her husband, who has now passed away. They are being accompanied by a Grim Reaper who is taking them to the afterlife. It turns out there is a train nearby that will carry them to the afterlife after midnight, so an excited Masakazu says he wants to witness it. At midnight, Masakazu and Akiko arrive near the train station where they watch the Grim Reaper escorting Yuko and her husband onto a train. During this time, Masakazu opens up about his past and reveals that his father was a university professor and would sometimes be away on research trips. Whenever this happened, his mother would always dress up and go out somewhere. A curious Masakazu followed her one day and discovered that she had been visiting the home of a writer named Goshiro Kotaki. Goshiro is the same author of the old manuscript that Akiko had found in the storeroom. room. It turns out that the man wrote some extraordinary books and then suddenly disappeared, as if he had never existed, and Masakazu suspects that Goshiro was his father. Upon hearing this, Akiko feels bad for her husband and gently comforts him. The scene then cuts to a few days later, when Masakazu visits his editor, Honda, in a hospital and learns that he is gravely ill and has only a month to live. The man worries for his family, so Masakazu suggests that if he negotiates with the Grim Reaper to obtain a ghost certificate after his death, he may still be able to spend time with them. In the following days, nothing in Masakazu's life goes well. His favorite fish burns, he spills coffee on his manuscript, and he even loses his job to another writer after failing to meet a deadline. One day, Aunt Kin tells Masakazu that he has brought a bad omen into his home. Sensing something strange, Masakazu pokes the ceiling with his bamboo sword, and what falls is an old, disheveled man. Before the old man can do anything, Aunt Kin quickly restrains him with a rope and demands to know who he is. It turns out that the man is the god of poverty and bad luck, and he came to the house after overhearing people say that Masakazu was rich, which turned out to be wrong. Masakazu tries to chase the poverty god away, but Akiko treats him as a guest and offers him a meal. After taking a bite, the poverty god bursts into tears, saying that it is the first time in 800 years he has ever been treated so kindly. Masakazu is annoyed by how generous his wife is to someone who only brings them bad luck, but Akiko insists that he is not that bad. Days later, Masakazu goes to visit Honda in the hospital but sees him leaving with the Grim Reaper, revealing that he has passed away. Masakazu approaches them and they begin to discuss what to do next. Honda tries to apply to become a ghost, but the Grim Reaper says there are too many pending applications. As a result, Honda cannot become a ghost unless he receives life energy from someone close to him, which would shorten that person's lifespan. The Grim Reaper then offers another option. Honda could be reincarnated as a monster while retaining all his memories as a human. With no other choice, Honda agrees and is soon reborn as a grotesque, frog-like creature. He feels disgusted with himself, but at least this way, he can watch over his family and decides to find a job to support them. Back at home, Akiko is bonding with the poverty god and grows curious about what is inside his bag, so she asks to see it. Inside, there is nothing but junk, but the poverty god wants to give Akiko something. She then finds an old rice bowl, which she likes very much, so he decides to gift it to her. After this, he decides to leave, as he doesn't want to bring bad luck to the family anymore. This makes Akiko very sad, but when Masakazu learns about it, he feels very happy. That night, Akiko receives a call from her husband's workplace, so she rushes out to find him. On the way, a creature grabs her leg and trips her, causing her to tumble down the stairs. Akiko senses that something is wrong, but she quickly gets up and continues running. She soon finds her husband and tells him about an urgent new project, with the deadline set for the next day. This excites Masakazu, but since time is short, he immediately hurries home to begin working. The next day, we see Honda working at an amusement park, where he notices his wife and daughter spending time with a new man, which makes him feel upset. To his shock, he also sees Akiko hanging out with another man and daughter, as if they were her family. Days later, he meets with Masakazu and asks if Akiko visited Disneyland last Sunday, but Masakazu says no, as they were together. Honda is confused and assumes that it must have been some other woman. One evening, Masakazu arrives at the bar he usually visits, and the barmaid tells him that he looks as if he has encountered some evil being. She says she can sense such things and gives him a charm to ward off evil. Upon returning home, Masakazu puts the charm at the entrance of his house. Not long after, Akiko returns home, but shockingly, she cannot enter and is pushed back by the charm. A horrified Masakazu asks if she is a spirit, to which Akiko explains that a few days ago, a demon's red hand appeared and knocked her down, causing her soul to leave her body. She reveals how she searched for her body but could not find it. To make matters worse, the Grim Reaper also arrives and says that since Akiko's body has not been found, she is considered dead, meaning she must be taken to the afterlife. Masakazu is devastated and tries to search for her body, but suddenly collapses unconscious. He is brought inside, after which the Grim Reaper explains that the reason Akiko had been able to stay all this time is because her life energy had been drawn from Masakazu, which left him weak. Akiko then goes to see Masakazu, whose condition has improved slightly. She smiles gently and says that she is looking at the face of the person she loves. Sometime later, Masakazu wakes up and notices that Akiko is gone and has only left a letter behind. She has written that she cannot continue draining his life energy to stay, so she has decided to go to the afterlife. This devastates Masakazu, and he hurriedly rushes to the train station, which is supposed to take the dead to the afterlife. There, he finally finds his wife and tearfully hugs her while begging her to stay. But Akiko refuses to change her mind and thanks him for his love before finally boarding the train with the Grim Reaper. After his wife leaves, Masakazu feels distraught and even considers ending his life. But the Grim Reaper stops him, saying that if he does that, his soul will be trapped forever and he will never be reunited with his wife. Masakazu then decides to find his wife's body and recalls how Honda saw someone who looked exactly like Akiko. He approaches a shaman and a local detective and decides to find the person who is impersonating his wife. After an intense search, they eventually find the woman who has been possessing Akiko's body. They approach her family, and her husband reveals that his wife had passed away, but suddenly returned in another body. The woman also explains how her soul had been wandering aimlessly when she came across Akiko's body and decided to inhabit it. She apologizes for everything and says she is willing to give it back, but Masakazu yells at her and says that it is too late. Upon returning home, Masakazu decides to go to the afterlife to get his wife back. The way to return from the afterlife was written in an old book by Goshiro Kotaki, but he only has the incomplete manuscript, so the only way to find the path back to the real world is to ask him directly. Aunt Kin thus gives him Goshiro's location in the afterlife, after which Masakazu eats the poisonous mushroom. Moments later, his soul leaves his body, and Aunt Kin promises that she will guard his body with her life until he returns. Following this, Masakazu encounters the Grim Reaper at the train station, who takes him to the afterlife. After a long ride, they finally arrive at their destination, and Masakazu finds the place breathtakingly beautiful. The Grim Reaper explains that this place appears differently to everyone, shaped exactly as each person always imagined it. She also reveals that Akiko's death was no coincidence, but the work of a rogue spirit called Tentuki. Next, Masakazu goes to visit the address of Goshiro, but he is horrified when his mother comes out of the house. He is angry when she realizes she had actually cheated on his father. Soon, Goshiro appears, puts on a mask and glasses, and asks if Masakazu recognizes him. In a shocking twist, it turns out that Goshiro is his own father in disguise. It is revealed that Goshiro's father had forced him to become a professor, so he secretly led a double life as a novelist. After a brief chat, Masakazu tells his father everything about Akiko and asks how to return from the afterlife. His father explains that if her body is still in the present world, there is a chance she can return. He also reveals that the weapon needed to fight Tentuki is imagination, and teaches Masakazu how to create powerful weapons using his mind. Following this, Masakazu goes to find his wife and soon finds her sitting on a throne, dressed like a princess. The two embrace tearfully, and Masakazu tells her that he has found her body and has come to bring her back. But just then, Tentuki appears with his minions, and Masakazu hurriedly hides himself. The rogue spirit then orders Akiko to sign a contract to marry him, but she refuses. Tentuki comments that she is just like in her previous life and shockingly reveals that he has been in love with Akiko for the past 200 years. But in every life, she falls in love with Masakazu and marries him instead. After Tentuki leaves, the couple is reunited and overjoyed to realize they have been together for the past 200 years. But just then, Tentuki returns with his minions and is shocked to see Masakazu, so he immediately launches an attack. Masakazu quickly uses his imagination to create a bamboo sword and strikes Tentuki. The monsters, however, are overwhelming in number and nearly impossible to defeat, so the couple leaps out of a window. Next, Masakazu lands on a board he has created from his imagination and quickly makes a bridge to escape. But Tentuki doesn't give up easily, as he takes on a terrifying, monstrous form and pursues them relentlessly from behind. Shortly after, the two arrive at the station in the underworld, but there is no train back to the real world. They are surrounded by Tentuki's minions, but Masakazu once again summons his bamboo sword and cuts down the monsters. Thinking quickly, Masakazu creates a train with his imagination, and the two climb aboard. But Tentuki destroys the train and corners them on a jagged rock. He then captures Masakazu and threatens Akiko, demanding that she marry him and vow to be with him for eternity, or he will kill her beloved. With no other choice, poor Akiko reluctantly agrees to marry Tentuki, even though Masakazu pleads with her not to. Tentuki then forces her to recite the vows, and she hesitantly obliges. But before she can finish the vows, something appears out of nowhere and strikes Tentuki. To their shock, it turns out to be the rice bowl that the poverty god had given Akiko. It turns out to be not just an ordinary bowl, but a divine tool. The power of the bowl effortlessly defeats Tentuki, allowing the couple to escape from the danger. However, the moment they step out of the afterlife, the bowl shatters in two. Upon returning home, Akiko carefully repairs the broken bowl she received from the poverty god. Masakazu then shares the full story of his father, revealing that Goshiro Kotaki was his pen name. He was pressured to become a professor, so he secretly changed his appearance and identity to fulfill his true dream of becoming a writer. Akiko reassures her husband that she will always support him, and together they enjoy their favorite meal as the story comes to a heartwarming end. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment, and check out this video as well.